The month of August is Breastfeeding Awareness Month. So over the days and weeks, you'll be hearing a lot of public awareness campaigns, things on TV and on the radios about the benefits of breastfeeding, which is so good and so important. I fully endorse and support those messages. However, what I wanted to talk about today are the things that nobody tells women about breastfeeding. And I think sometimes when we go into that stage of our lives, it can even come as a shock. We see people breastfeeding around us and we think, oh, okay, it's the natural thing. But for some people, it can actually be very difficult, life-changing, really. So this is what I wanted to talk about today, the things that nobody tells us about breastfeeding. Hi, I am Dr. Gege. I'm a pediatrician, I'm a pulmonologist. But for today's video, I think I want to wear more my mom hat and just also share some of my experiences about breastfeeding, just so that some people out there can know if they're experiencing some of these things that they're not alone, and also for everybody else to really support breastfeeding mothers and to acknowledge them as the superheroes that they are. Okay. So the first thing I want to share about breastfeeding, which I didn't know and I don't think enough people tell us, is that it's hard. Breastfeeding is hard, guys, especially in the beginning, I mean, it's like that multitasking that you've never had to do. Learning how to hold a baby, maneuver your boobs, position their head, and then this whole business of latching, and some people don't struggle and some people do. In my case, I found the latching part very easy. I don't know if it was the shape of my nipples or what, but when I was breastfeeding my daughter from day one, she latched really well. It could also be that I know a little bit about latching, being a pediatrician. So we were good. We latched well, I had good flow, and we breastfed very well in the beginning. The few experiences that I had that were a bit uncomfortable was experiencing the backache, because I think as much as she latched well, I didn't really know exactly how to sit to support the baby as well as support my back. So that really wasn't easy. So that was the beginning, but I had good flow. So my story is that I breastfed exclusively for 4 months. I would pump as well for the times at night when I would get... Sorry, what are you doing? Okay, and then you must go back around, okay? Don't walk here. No, it's fine. Throw it away. Throw it away. It's okay. Okay, so I breastfed exclusively for about 4 months and went back to work at around 4.5, closer to 5 months. And within about a week of being back at work, my flow just went down, like completely plummeted. The baby would be drinking and she would start fussing and getting irritable about the fact that the flow wasn't so good. And I think the mistake, well, at the time I thought it was a mistake, but I think I was just doing the best that I could, was to introduce formula at the time, which didn't help the situation because the flow just kept getting worse. What I wish I knew then and know now is that there was something that could have been done about that. I could have then gone and consulted with a lactation expert. Some are nurses, some are OTs, there's different kinds, who could have given me advice and tips on what to do. And I think something I hadn't considered about the whole situation was my anxiety about going back to work, and feelings of guilt, So I think the whole thing was just associated with me feeling quite guilty about not being able to give my daughter enough milk. And the cycle just perpetuated itself. Feeling guilty, anxious, the flow for that reason was also decreasing further and further. So we really can get in our heads about it. But really what I just want to advise everyone is, if suddenly there's a change in your and your baby's rhythm and how the milk is flowing, don't panic, don't give up, get help, find out there's things that can be done, there's things you can take to support the milk flow, but there's also things you can take to help with your mental state. So there's medication that can be taken to deal with anxiety, or even if someone's going through postpartum depression or anything like that, there is medication that can be taken that is safe for the baby. Some won't pass down to the baby, and some will actually help with the flow of the breast milk. So I think had I known this then, maybe my story would have been a bit different. So for that reason, we stopped breastfeeding completely. I think by 6 months there was absolutely no milk, and if I would even like show the boob to my daughter, she'd just get so annoyed, because by that point she really preferred the bottle. So yeah, and then another thing is that it can get quite lonely. I don't know how to explain it, I think breastfeeding, as beautiful as an experience that it is in terms of bonding, holding your baby close, it's relentless. It's all day, it can be all night. And unlike what we are taught in that, like, oh, babies feed every 3 hours, breastfed babies want the boob anytime, and some babies actually use that as something to soothe them if you're not into pacifiers. So it really can feel like it's a non-stop slog. But I just find that sometimes it can actually just feel like a bit lonely. You're up at night alone sometimes because your partner can't really breastfeed the baby unless you guys have decided that, okay, you'll also pump and he can take some shifts. But there's a lot of time that you are up at night or sitting alone, separate to people somewhere, breastfeeding the baby. And if you don't have good like social support, it can feel quite lonely and quite isolating. So I really encourage breastfeeding mothers to talk to other moms, talk to people who've done this before. Don't isolate yourself. Ask questions if you're not sure about something that's happening to your body, or it doesn't feel good, or something doesn't feel comfortable. Let somebody know, get help, okay? And the other thing that I wanted to share is that, so breastfeeding, it doesn't happen for everyone, in the beginning. Certainly the first few days aren't easy. The flow is low. It's that we call it liquid gold that's flowing in the first few days, which is colostrum. So some people worry about that. This is liquid coming out of the breasts. It's not white in color. It's quite watery. So I think some moms, if they don't know, could think that they actually don't have milk. But if you just wait a few days, the colostrum, that fluid starts to change and actually starts to look more like milk, and your flow will actually increase. But there are other reasons that can also make breastfeeding not happen for some ladies, and that could also be the shape of your nipples. Some people have flat nipples, some people have retracted nipples, and this can make breastfeeding very difficult. And for some people, it just doesn't happen. But again, I'm saying get help, get advice, because just because you have those issues, it doesn't mean that it won't happen for you. There's things called nipple shields. There's all sorts of gadgets and things that are out there now that we just need to be more informed about. I'm not a lactation expert, and maybe one day I will actually bring someone on who is an expert in this field, just to share certain tips, things that can help to make the journey easier. So the things like nipple shields, which type of nipple creams to use, there's all different kinds out there. So it really doesn't have to be a slog, and then pumping, okay? Those moms who express, moms who are going back to work, and if you actually want to get other people involved to help you with the baby at night or when you're napping during the day, you will need to express some milk and leave that so that someone can put that in a bottle and give to the baby. But the thing that nobody told me about pumping is how long it takes. Pumping takes time, It's a good 20 to 30 minutes at a time to get whatever volume of milk you're going to get depending on your flow, and it really matters also like the frame of mind you're in. So it's not as easy as like, okay, I'm watching TV, I'm just going to grab a pump and pump. You have to time it. Is it before your baby has breastfed? Is it while your baby's asleep? Are you going to do it first thing in the morning? Are you going to do it between feeds? Like there's a whole science around pumping, which I think nobody really prepares you for. I mean, you find your rhythm in time, But I just think if people were just more cognizant and more open about this information, that this thing really takes time, just know that when you're pumping, if you can pump and do something else, I don't know, if you have, let's say, an electric pump and you actually are able to work on your computer or do things on your phone, I think that's great. But for people who pump manually, either by hand or using those manual breast pumps, like, it's a completely different story. You can't pump and do something else. So I think we just need to give a little bit more respect to this whole expressing and pumping situation. And a serious heads up to the moms who pump exclusively. So for those who are unable to actually breastfeed, but they've continued to pump like throughout the time that their child is actually drinking breast milk, kudos to you. Like, that thing is not easy. And then also something that I didn't know about is the fact that your baby can have a boob preference, So also the boobs just don't develop the same. So there's one that always flows a bit better than the other. But your baby can just decide that, like, I'm a left boob person, And you can find yourself just going with that and always producing, like, showing your baby that one boob. But it can also affect like how they learn to turn their heads. So it's important to alternate boobs, even for yourself, and to keep the other boob also quite active. But I think for me, that's also something that I didn't know. And I'm gonna end with this one, and that is the fact that breastfeeding is not a contraceptive. I think that this is a message that maybe is not shared enough, but the number of people who fall pregnant soon after having their babies because they thought that breastfeeding was a form of contraceptive, it's real, and it's still happening today. So don't be caught out. Your period can return while you're breastfeeding, even if you're exclusively breastfeeding. And even if your period doesn't return and you're exclusively breastfeeding, if you are having unprotected sex, you can absolutely fall pregnant, okay? So it is not a contraceptive. So yeah, guys, in closing, I just want to say to all the breastfeeding moms out there, please keep going. You're doing so well. It is not easy, I know, but you will thank yourself. I also want to say that, if someone can't breastfeed, or if for whatever reason chooses not to, there's no shame in that, So I think we need to also move away from this thing of judging moms who formula feed their babies. As long as your baby is being fed, is growing, and is healthy, that is really, really all that matters. And then to everybody else who knows a breastfeeding mom or has a breastfeeding lady in the house, please support those people. These women are superheroes. Like, for me, I think anyone who's breastfeeding is a superhero. We were at the mall the other day and I saw a lady who was walking out of Checkers holding a grocery bag in one hand. And I don't know how the baby was strapped to her, but she was holding her baby this side and there was a boob out and the baby was drinking and she was walking. I wanted to give her like a slow clap, but obviously I don't know what situation she's in to have her multitasking to that degree. But all I'm saying is much respect to all the breastfeeding moms out there. So please keep at it and let's spread the word. Let's spread the message on breastfeeding. It's so important and it's so good for the babies. Thank you, guys. Please don't forget to subscribe, comment, share your thoughts. I also get ideas for new topics and the things that I need to share about from your feedback. And also, please, if you found this video helpful, like it. And if you think there's someone who could benefit from this information, please share.